Good morning, welcome to the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. It's a quiet morning of trade. Let's get you up to speed with all the key developments. Lots of different developments around the world, by the way, some of which I'll try and highlight. First, the US markets, and the US markets were flattish, marginally lower, if you will. The futures too trading marginally low, or a flattish trade to the futures as well. So no big gyrations in the US markets, and thereby no large cues that have come in from there. However, a couple of points that I wanted to bring out. I think one of the Bloomberg stories is speaking about the semiconductor shortage. And while yesterday or day before, there are some murmurs about how this may be coming to an end, I must tell you that the views from corporates around the world are mixed at best. If there is one corporate saying that we are seeing an end to the issue, there are others who are saying that it's not quite the same as yet. So Apple, for example, is likely to slash its projected iPhone 13 production targets for 2021 by as many as 10 million units over prolonged chip shortages. The company is still telling manufacturing partners that the total iPhones produced will be lower because Broadcom and Texas Instruments are struggling to deliver enough parts. Now, you could argue that the quantum of chip parts that Apple needs versus some other companies might be needing is different, and therefore there is a need. There is maybe it's a valid argument, but the point being that one of the most widely used consumer items manufacturer has an issue, and therefore the issue is not done and dusted as yet. There could be a moment or two of, or rather a month or two, or maybe a quarter or two, who knows, of this issue lingering. So keep that in the back of your mind. In fact, this is something that Volvo Eicher MD had also suggested, that he saw it lasting at least until the better part of December, and then maybe going ahead as well. Be that as it may, so I just thought I'll bring that up to speed for everybody. There's a chart on the Bloomberg terminal. We should try and bring that up. It shows how the yields on Chinese junk dollar bonds are continuing to rise. Apparently, Tracy Alloway, my Bloomberg colleague in Hong Kong, has found out that there are at least three more developers aside of Evergrande in China who have defaulted on payments or have sought extension on the payment timeline. So I think this issue around real estate developers in China missing payments or wanting more time extensions, in addition to Evergrande, by the way, is again not done and dusted. I know it's largely a China-specific issue, but remember, viewers, the last time when it flared up, it brought a flutter in the markets. So you got to keep an eye out for it. Even if it doesn't have fundamental implications for an Indian company or Indian markets, it might have collateral implications, and therefore you have to keep that in mind. Um, Asia and the SGX Nifty would indicate a start which is maybe flattish to marginally lower, about 1.5% for Hang Seng, but CSI Kospi is up about 1% as well. So mixed bag at best. The SGX Nifty should come up on your screen next, and let's see what that is indicating for the start today. Remember, at best, it will give us an indication for what the start is likely to be. For now, placid about 53 odd points. I think people will take it. Let's just very quickly just also see what happened in trade yesterday before we move on to the trades that have the stocks to monitor in the session today. So the market breadth still positive, which is not a bad sign. And as you can see, a bunch of very interesting stocks went up yesterday. There's a Goldman note, I think, on Radico, which led to that stock doing well. Ujjivan Small Finance Bank were highlighted in the trade setup. That did really well. The future group stocks, there's a lot of murmurs around what could happen to any kind of out-of-court settlement between Amazon and Future. Who knows? Be careful if you're trading on such rumors, but the stocks were active yesterday on the back of that. But the textile names certainly flared up. Vardhman, Alok, you name a textile name, and that was doing well. I'm so glad we spoke about this possibility the other day about textiles, sugar, as well as real estate being the stocks which will enter a period of heavy news flow, and I think we're starting to see that. The trade setup, I think the September headline CPI, the August IP largely were in line or slightly better than expectations, but no big gyrations anticipated in terms of the market perception of what could happen to rates as a result of this. So that's a good sign. PSU banks aided Bank Nifty upmove, not ruled out as yet completely. I was going to say PSU banks led upmove, but PSU banks don't have that much of a weightage on the Bank Nifty, and therefore for the Bank Nifty to move, the private banks need to move. But if the sentiment around the PSU banks is robust, as seems to be the case, then that plus a private bank or two participating and leading the Bank Nifty higher is not ruled out. So watch out for that particular argument. And I think 3 or 4 IT majors come out over the next 2 days, and the commentary from each of those would be very, very crucial and important. So today's earnings have an Infosys, a Wipro, and a Mindtree. So those three from the IT major space, and Mindtree is as large as they come when it comes to the non-Nifty IT names. So today, very important. Most of these will happen post-market hours. So the commentary will be known, excuse me, post-market hours today. But between these three today and HCL Technologies tomorrow, we'll get to know whether what happened to TCS is a one-off or isolated incident or an isolated case of the earnings not quite meeting estimates, or do the others also follow suit? The other very important thing viewers to keep in mind would be that even if this quarter has been a bit of a miss, if they are maintaining the guidance, then they are hoping to recoup whatever little they may have lost in the quarters ahead, which is actually not a bad sign. So then the weakness might be bought into. But HCL Tech yesterday had a big, sharp crackdown, and one would suspect that maybe people who believe that or who know a thing or two about how the quarter might have shaped up for HCL Technologies might have been the case as well. Look at that, 4% lower. This, 2 days before the results, um, people who analyze HCL Technologies very closely might have known a thing or two, and maybe that's why this happened in trade yesterday. Let's wait and watch what happens over the course of the next 2 days. What are the stocks to watch in the session today? That's the key thing. Tata Motors, without a shadow of doubt, the most important one. TPG Rise Climate and ADQ to invest in the passenger electric vehicle unit, 7,500 crores, which takes the equity valuation of this unit to up to $9 billion. To put it into perspective, the current market cap of Tata Motors would be what, 20 billion? So this is large, this is important, and this will cause, I believe, a reaction in Tata Motors as well. Look at Nomura's note, for example, on Tata Motors. They are upgrading the stock to a buy from a neutral. The target price raised to 547. They are saying the upgrade is on the India PV electrification plans, naturally so. The capital raise provides credibility to the EV investments, and the capital raise makes them confident of investment-led growth path. And at an EV volume assumption of 96,000 in FY24, the implied valuation stands at 5 times FY24 EV to sales, at about 152 per share, which is in line with global EV comparables or companies as well. So pretty strong upgrades that have come in for Tata Motors. I have no doubt that the stock will have a bit of a reaction today. We need to watch out for aviation companies. Interglobe and SpiceJet. India is permitted to operate domestic airlines with 100% capacity from October 18th. So do watch out for these. I don't quite know how Z would react, but CEO Puneet Goenka has said that Invesco may have given this letter for the proposal of a deal, but the deal involved a merger of the company which is Z, and certain entities owned by a large Indian group, which Puneet Goenka thought at that point of time, and he submitted to Invesco as well, that the valuations weren't quite correct. The board of Z met on Tuesday to consider the note addressed to them by Puneet Goenka. So very interesting what's happening out there as well. Centrum Capital, RBI has granted the small finance bank license to the consortium of Centrum Group and Resilient Innovations. The MSME and microfinance book of Centrum will be merged with the new SFB. Let's see what happens with this one. Some other stocks in focus include the fertilizer stocks. The cabinet has approved the nutrient-based subsidy rates for phosphatic and potassic fertilizers. PFC, wherein the government has accorded Maharatna status to the company. IndusInd Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank, they've gotten the approval to collect direct and indirect taxes. And Zen Technology is going to consider a fundraising plan on October 16th. So this is the other one that could be in focus. I'll watch out for some of the fertilizer names in particular in case there is a reaction, as well as the IT names in the session today, of course. And lastly, before we wrap up, what stood out for us was this, and whether there is yet another supply chain snarl looking at the world, because This Chinese port in Shenzhen suspended pickup and drop off of containers as tropical cyclone Kompasu approached the coastline. The number of ships waiting outside the port rose to 67, which is the most since August 26. The story on Bloomberg seem to suggest that this is developing into yet another snarl, which could have repercussions for supply chain. And supply chains already, as we know, are very, very stressed. This would only add to it. Let's wait and watch if indeed that were to happen. Um, Tata Motors, maybe some fertilizer names, maybe a couple of names on the NBFC space are all that one should watch out for. And what the IT majors say in terms of the commentary would be something very, very critical for tomorrow's session as well. So do watch out for that. Thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup today. Have a safe, profitable day ahead. And if you're stepping out, please stay master.